The fluorescent hospital lights buzzed above me, washing everything in that cold, sterile white that made people look more like ghosts than family. My chest felt like it was caving in, every breath rattling out shallow and broken. The nurse had just placed the oxygen mask over my face, telling me to stay calm, that the doctor was coming. My fingers trembled as I gripped the sides of the bed, trying to hold on to something solid while the world blurred around me. And then I saw them, my parents, walking in. For a brief second, something inside me hoped maybe this time they were here for me. Maybe they would stay by my side. But the way Dad's eyes narrowed, the way Mom's lips curled into that familiar sneer, I knew better. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. Dad didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't even look at the monitor beeping frantically by my bed. Instead, he walked over with that slow, heavy gait, his boots echoing across the floor like judgment. His hand went straight to the oxygen mask pressed to my face. I gasped, clutching at his wrist, but his grip was stronger. With one swift motion, he yanked the mask off, the hiss of the oxygen cutting out like hope being strangled. "Save it for someone who matters," he muttered, voice sharp, every word slicing into me deeper than the pain in my lungs. The air burned as I tried to breathe without it. My chest rose and fell violently, every inhale scraping like fire. My hands shook as I reached toward him, but he stepped back, tossing the mask aside like it was trash. Behind him, Mom let out a laugh that filled the entire sterile room with venom. Not soft, not nervous. It was loud, sharp, cruel. "Who would love garbage anyway?" she sneered, folding her arms across her chest, watching me like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. Her words stabbed worse than the lack of air. Garbage. That's all I had ever been to them. I wanted to scream, to tell them I wasn't garbage, that I mattered, but sound caught in my throat, choked by the lack of oxygen and the weight of years of their cruelty. The nurse hurried back in, eyes wide with panic, quickly grabbing the mask and shoving past Dad. "What are you doing? He needs this!" she yelled, forcing the oxygen back over my face, holding it firm against my skin. My lungs clawed at the fresh air, dragging it in desperately. Dad sneered at the nurse, his voice a low growl. "You're wasting your time. He's nothing but dead weight. Let him learn his place." Mom's laughter softened into a mock-sweet coo as she leaned closer to me, brushing a stray strand of hair off my forehead with fake tenderness. "Maybe this is what you need," she whispered, her breath hot on my ear. A reminder that people like you don't get saved. Tears blurred my vision, spilling down the sides of my face into the hospital pillow, not just from the pain in my body, but from the deeper agony of knowing the two people meant to protect me were the ones who wanted me broken. The nurse tried to push them out, but Dad shoved her back with one hand. "We're family," he snapped, like that gave him the right to torture me. "This is our business." Mom's voice cut through again, crueler this time. "Family? Don't make me laugh. You're not family. You're the shadow we can't get rid of. Nothing more." Every word pressed down on me like another weight I couldn't carry. My body shook, trembling between life and despair. My mind screamed for help, for someone to see what was happening, but the room seemed smaller, the walls pressing in, the machines beeping louder as if mocking my weakness. And through it all, their faces hovered over me, full of disgust, delighting in my suffering. The mask hissed softly, filling my lungs with air, but my parents' voices filled me with poison. At that moment, staring at them through the blur of tears and fluorescent light, I realized something I had never let myself admit before. They didn't just hate me, they wanted me erased. And for the first time, as the oxygen steadied my breathing again, a different kind of fire lit inside me, a quiet, fragile ember of defiance that whispered, "If they want me gone, I'll give them something they'll never forget instead." The days after that hospital night blurred into one endless haze of needles, machines, and shallow breaths. But even as my body tried to heal, my parents' cruelty only sharpened. They didn't leave after the mask incident. They lingered. Every day they came, not with flowers or prayers like other families, but with smirks and venom disguised as family visits. Dad would stand by the window, hands tucked into his pockets, looking at me the way you'd look at something rotting. "Doctors waste too much money on you," he'd mutter, voice dripping with disdain. "Do you know how much this room costs? Beds like this should go to people who actually contribute something." Mom wasn't any softer. She'd perch on the chair beside my bed, cross her legs, and pick imaginary lint from her sleeve while saying things that burrowed deep under my skin. "You should have died the first time you got sick. That would have been merciful. Instead, you keep clinging on like some parasite." I clenched my fists under the blanket, nails digging into my palms until little crescents of pain reminded me I was still here, still alive. And though their words stung, I started listening differently, not just to what they said, but to what they revealed about themselves. I noticed how Dad would check his watch constantly, like he was late for something, how Mom would complain about missing real family moments because she was stuck here babysitting trash. Their lives didn't revolve around me. I was just a punching bag, but one they couldn't resist returning to. And then came the night that changed everything. The ward was quiet, most patients asleep, the dim glow of machines blinking in rhythm. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. When I heard footsteps approach, my heart tightened. It was them. Dad walked in first, his silhouette blocking the doorway light, followed by Mom. She was carrying something in a paper bag that crinkled as she set it on the bedside table. "What's that?" I rasped, my throat raw. Mom's smile widened. "Dinner," she said sweetly, pulling out 2 slices of cake. "For us. Not you. You don't deserve sweet things." Dad chuckled, pulling up the chair, sitting so close I could smell the bitter tang of his aftershave. He leaned in, lowering his voice like he was telling me a secret. "You're nothing but a rehearsal for us. Do you get that? Every mistake we made raising you, we're fixing with your sister. She matters. You don't." The words sliced deeper than the surgery scars lining my side. My breath caught, the oxygen mask fogging with tears I refused to let fall. Mom shoved the fork into the cake, taking slow, exaggerated bites while keeping her eyes locked on me. "We gave her everything. And you're just here to remind us what failure looks like." I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the IV out of my arm and run, but my body was too weak. All I could do was watch as they laughed, eating cake beside my hospital bed, while I lay starving for love that would never come. But inside, something shifted. It wasn't just pain anymore. It was calculation. Every laugh, every insult, every sneer became fuel. My mind, foggy from medication, began sharpening with one thought. They want me to feel worthless. I'll make sure they choke on the worth they refuse to see. I started noticing things. The way Mom always carried her designer purse, clutching it like it held her soul. The way Dad's voice dropped whenever he mentioned his company, how his pride hinged on being seen as respected. They didn't fear losing me, they feared losing their image. One afternoon, a nurse came to check my vitals, muttering under her breath about how unfortunate my family was. When I asked her what she meant, she hesitated, then said, "I see families here every day. Most cry, most pray. Yours? They laugh. They call you names. People notice." Her words lit something inside me. People were watching. My parents' cruelty wasn't as invisible as they thought. That ember of defiance I'd felt the first night began to spark into something hotter. I didn't tell them, of course. When they came back the next evening, Mom wearing a new silk scarf, Dad bragging about a deal he'd closed, I stayed quiet. I let them spit their venom, nodding as though I'd absorbed every word. But beneath the silence, my plan was growing. They wanted me erased? Fine. I would erase the one thing they clung to most, their untouchable pride. And as the machines hummed and my body slowly regained strength, I started preparing the revenge they would never see coming. The day I was discharged, the sun outside felt too bright, too sharp, like it was mocking me for walking out of that hospital alive when my parents had done everything in their power to snuff me out. They didn't even come to pick me up. I stood there, weak, clutching the plastic bag of my belongings while other families hugged their loved ones. Dad's voice echoed in my head. Beds like this should go to people who actually contribute something. Mom's laughter still clung to me like a bruise. I swore in that moment I'd never give them the satisfaction of seeing me break again. But revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, like a seed planted deep in the dirt, waiting for its moment to rise. I went back to my small apartment, every step like fire, but with each painful breath I forced myself to remember their faces when they mocked me, their smug certainty that I'd always stay beneath them. And that became my weapon. Weeks passed. I stayed silent. They didn't bother checking in. Why would they? In their minds, I was already discarded, but while they gloated in their comfort, I was piecing myself back together and planning. The opportunity came sooner than I thought. My sister, the golden child they worshipped, was about to have her birthday, the kind of lavish event my parents lived for. Photo shoots, guests, speeches, all of it staged so the world could see their perfect daughter. I knew they'd be there, smiling like saints, presenting themselves as the most devoted family. And I knew it was the exact stage I needed. I reached out quietly, slipping an offer to the event planner they'd hired. Money I didn't really have, scraped from my last savings, but worth every cent. I didn't need to ruin my sister. She wasn't the enemy. It was them. I only needed one thing, the microphone. The night of the party, I walked into that ballroom unnoticed. They hadn't invited me, of course not. But that didn't matter. I blended in among the crowd, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst. The chandeliers glowed above, the tables were covered in white silk, and at the center of it all, Mom and Dad laughed louder than anyone, basking in the admiration of their guests. When the lights dimmed and the host called for a few words from the proud parents, I struck. I stepped forward, steady, my hands trembling only slightly as I took the mic. Gasps rippled through the room. My mother's painted smile faltered. Dad's jaw tightened. "I won't take much of your time," I said, my voice carrying across the room. "I just wanted everyone here to know what kind of people you're celebrating tonight." Mom hissed, "Get off the stage right now," but I ignored her. These two, I gestured toward them, came to the hospital while I was fighting for my life. Do you know what they did? My father pulled the oxygen mask off my face and said, "Save it for someone who matters." My mother laughed and said, "Who would love garbage anyway?" The room fell silent, utter, suffocating silence, the kind that chokes. Guests turned their heads, eyes wide, whispers starting to ripple. A woman in the front shook her head in disgust. A man muttered, "My God!" Dad stood, red-faced, barking, "She's lying!" But it was too late. The cracks had formed. People weren't seeing them as proud parents anymore. They were seeing them as monsters. I pulled something from my pocket, the hospital wristband, still stained from my blood. I held it up. "This is what they laughed at while eating cake beside my bed." Mom tried to laugh it off, but the sound rang hollow. Guests recoiled. Even my sister, draped in her glittering gown, looked at them with something between shock and shame. I didn't wait for them to speak. I handed the mic back to the host and walked out, the weight of years of humiliation lifting with every step. The fallout came fast. Their friends stopped answering calls. Dad's company partners pulled back, unwilling to be tied to someone whose cruelty was now public gossip. Mom's social circle, built on status and envy, collapsed overnight. The people they wanted most to impress the world outside now saw them as nothing more than heartless abusers. And the best part? I never said another word. I didn't fight, I didn't explain, I didn't plead. I just vanished from their lives, letting the echo of my truth do the work for me. For weeks they tried to reach me, calls, texts, even showing up at my door. But I never answered. Silence became my final weapon. And when I walked past them once in town, Dad slumped, Mom's face hollow, people crossing the street to avoid them, I finally let myself smile. Because for the first time in my life, they were the ones gasping for air. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.